All right. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are calling in from. Welcome to the Photographer Spotlight from Prince for Wildlife. This is a ongoing series that we've been doing as we lead up to the third year of Prince for Wildlife. So thank you guys for joining us and signing up. My name is Chase Tarrant. I've been a part of Prince for Wildlife as a contributing photographer, as well as the digital marketer for the team. We have a fantastic lineup for this year for photographers, new talent, and incredible work. And today we're going to be speaking. We got Richard here, and Richard Flack is a photographer from South Africa. So Richard's going to be walking us through a cool presentation talking about one of his most recent adventures. And then we'll have opportunities throughout this for you guys to ask questions and put them in the chat. So obviously, Richard and I can only see each other. We're going to make sure you guys can see his slides and his epic photos. In the side chat there, please, if you can, I see some of you guys, some familiar faces. Just say hello and mention where you're from. So that gets you familiar with that chat. That's our area of communication, guys. So we're going to put Richard's Instagram in there and any other relevant links in that link in that chat box. So without further ado, let's get started here. We're going to have people come in. As you come in and you need to leave early, no problem. This is always recorded. It's sent out automatically. So you'll see it from Prince for Wildlife and from myself, Chase. Okay, so welcome, Richard. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks so much, Chase, and what a pleasure to be here this evening. I just think first a thank you to you, Pi and Marion, for all the hard work with Prince for Wildlife. It's been a pleasure to work with you guys over the last 3 years, and yeah, just so exciting to support African parks. I'm so encouraged with what they're doing in Africa to protect our natural heritage, and so yeah, just such a privilege to be able to be part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. P and Marion have done an incredible job of uniting photographers and wildlife lovers and conservationists across the world. So again, it's the first time that Rich and I are meeting each other. So it's really cool for our perspectives to connect with people across the world that are doing amazing things. If you guys don't know Richard is a South African photographer. The guy, I think he's photographed every bird under the sun within Africa. His photos are incredible. So if you guys want his Instagram, I'm just going to put that in the link now, so you guys can have that, and it's going to be posted. So you guys can message him and connect with him. So it's just in the chat there. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Inungwe. Is that how you pronounce it? This is for me.
It's perfect. I think it's Nyungwe Forest in Rwanda. Yeah.
Amazing. So when did you go there, and do you have any slides that you want to pull up and share with us?
Yeah, awesome. Let me do that. I went there in June this year for 10 days, and you just let me know when you can see the slides.
Perfect. Yeah. And hey, before we pull up the slides and make them really big, let's just give people an idea of your background. So are you doing this as a hobbyist, as a professional? How did you get into wildlife photography? Sorry, I didn't want to jump ahead there. I forgot to ask you the most.
No problem whatsoever. Yeah, Chase, I started as a birder, passionate about birds. I think when I was in single digits, I remember reading and learning the names of birds. And then I think life gets in the way sometimes, and I got distracted through school and university. And then when I met my wife and I went down to the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal, I just fell in love with birds again, and I stole her camera, as one does, because I had to identify the birds I was seeing, and I wasn't very good at identifying them. So I started just taking photos, and I think it's been as much a surprise to me as to anyone else that I actually had a creative bone in my body. And so it's just been a real gift and a blessing to just kind of, just go on a journey of becoming a wildlife photographer. And just lovely to be recognized for that work now. And just an absolute gift.
So when did that start? How long have you been doing this? Like, obviously you're a birder since you were, like you said, in the single digits, but when did you snag your wife's camera? When did that happen?
Probably about 13 years ago now. So we've been married for 12. So I can always 2010, and I think I just started just before we got married. So it's about 13 years now.
Oh, incredible. That's amazing. That's and as in terms of a job, are you doing that as your full-time career? Is this just something that is taking up your time and you're doing it just out of love? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's absolutely a passion. I'm trying not to commercialize it, but it seems to be commercializing itself. Yeah, I used to run a fintech business in South Africa. Yeah, just an amazing. It wasn't called fintech when we started it, but sometimes just being at the right place at the right time. And I guess putting in some hard work. We were just really lucky, and I left that about 10 months ago. I'm taking a break from the corporate world and just loving time with my family. I've got a little boy who's 7 and a wife I love to bits called Eileen. And we live in Balgowan, which is in the Natal Midlands, surrounded by dairy farmers and timber plantations. So, yeah, I'm having an amazing time at the moment, Chase, and we'll see what the next adventure is. Yeah, it's been good.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for the background on there. And yeah, now we can get into the Nyungwe. I'm going to mispronounce that every single time, guys, but I'll let you correct me. And so this is in Rwanda, is that right?
That's correct. So, yeah, I think just to start off with, Chase, just some of the background. So I guess I started speaking about Nyungwe National Park with Keith Barnes, who runs a birding tour business called Tropical Birding about, I think, 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the best bird photography places in Africa, and specifically where you could take great photographs, but also see some incredibly rare birds. And what interested me about the conversation with Keith is one, he knows Africa and he knows birding, and he was just so willing to share his love and his knowledge with me. And what stuck out was, ever since I got a book that looked at sub-Saharan Africa, I would page through it and I'd be stopped in my tracks by these incredible birds, like a yellow-bellied wattle-eye. And I would go like, where does this bird come from? And they would all come from what became known to me as the Albertine Rift Mountains. And while talking to Keith, his view was that the best place to photograph Albertine Rift endemics was in Nyungwe Forest. And, that kind of conversation led to me booking a tour with his company. It was just by myself. I tend to just do bird photography tours on my own. And we booked that 3 years ago. And as you know, and we were chatting earlier tonight, is that COVID really got in the way of my dream trip to go to one of the best places to photograph these birds. And so, yeah, it got cancelled the first year, obviously cancelled the second year. Then I tried to go in December 2021, and that also got cancelled with the new variant. And then eventually dream came true, and I got to visit this amazing forest. And I think this picture kind of sums it up. The forests in South Africa are quite small, and just driving into Nyungwe, you just got this thing. It's otherworldly. I mean, it's 1,000 kilometers squared.
Wow.
And so you kind of see this next picture is taken from the.
I'm just going to pull your slides up here just so people can see it a little bit clearer. There you go. Sure. All good. Awesome.
All good. And this is taken from the Gugu Trail, which is Gugu is the highest mountain or the highest peak. I think it's 2,950 meters in elevation. And you look out onto Burundi, and I've never seen forest this big, and I don't think you can imagine it till you actually arrive there. And yeah, just this incredible biodiversity hotspot. Besides being just this magnificent forest, 322 bird species, 13 primate species, and 1,068 plant species. And so it was just quite an experience to arrive here.
That's incredible. So of those bird species, do you know the number of endemics for this particular area, or is it?
So in terms of Albertine Rift endemics, I know that in Nyungwe is 27 of the 31 Albertine Rift endemics. And Keith's view was, as much as you could see a lot of those endemics in Uganda, and there are 2 birds in Uganda that you can't see in Nyungwe, which is the broadbill and the pitta. He felt that, some of the birds you can only really see in Nyungwe, and he just felt from a photographic perspective that this forest gave you the best opportunity to get, I guess, unique photographs of these amazing birds.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's from traditional, what we assume as African wildlife photography, it's open plains and other than, I guess, the gorillas and stuff where you're trekking, I can't imagine it's really easy to get a photograph here, like to trek through and find the birds.
Yeah, I must say, I think I often wonder what people think goes into getting photographs, and forest birding is tricky in itself. And we started most days we were up at 5:30. We'd be in the forest by 6:37, and we'd hike, I guess, 10 to 15 kilometers a day, and we'd be back just as the sun went down. So there was 10 days. I think it was 9 days flat out in the forest. And I think what's difficult, Chase, is just the light conditions are very tricky. I think you feel like there's more light than there is. And I think that often means, you go down in ISO when actually, you actually need to go up in ISO. So they're quite tricky conditions. And I think just because forests are thick, it's quite hard to get a clear shot of the bird. And, one of the objectives I had is I thought that mirrorless technology could really do something for forest photography and bird photography specifically, just because it's got better ISO performance, it's got better tracking. And I wanted to see if it was possible to just get some really unprecedented shots of some of these really difficult to find birds. And a lot of them hang out in the canopy, which means you're kind of looking up at them. So it's just very difficult to get eye level, very difficult to get clear shots. And then very tricky light. And forest birding, you've got to put in a lot of effort. You've got to believe that there's hope around every corner.
Sounds like it.
And I laughed because I had the most amazing guide, which I'll talk about just now. But I would sometimes just find myself staring at my feet, with like just, kind of just losing a bit of hope. And Claver was amazing. He was just always upbeat, and he'd always stop and listen. And he was always excited about what could be around the next corner. And so I found that just really helpful.
You just need that little glimmer of hope.
Exactly. It's all about that. So, maybe, just this slide really talks about just the incredible hiking trails in Nyungwe Forest. And I really want to speak to this in the context of African parks. I felt they've done such a good job at maintaining those trails. And I felt so welcome, Chase. Sometimes we'd find, a fallen branch or a tree in the path. And within 24 hours, that tree was cleared. Wow. And we went down the Bururi Valley Road, and there were trees that had fallen in the road, and they literally got cleared within 24 hours so that we could take a car down. And I just felt that was a real, it's just something you don't always get. And I was really impressed by just the management and what was going into looking after the park. And these are two of my favorites. I thought, as hints and tips for any bird photographers or just people that love nature, these were two of my favorite trails. The one is the Sumo Waterfall Trail, which is by the one and only hotel. And just I haven't seen more beautiful forest than this. And then the excitement of seeing birds that I literally dreamt about. You get Elliott's woodpecker, Tulberg's woodpecker, white-bellied robinchat, white-browed crombrick, equatorial accolade. Just amazing, amazing birds in this forest. And this is as you got to the bottom, and there's a river that sort of ran through sort of the halfway point of the trail, and eventually leads to a waterfall. And then the other is the Gugu Trail. It's just another picture taken from that same hike. It's quite a grueling trail. I think it's the most challenging. They say it's the most challenging trail in the park, but just so worth it. I would just advise anyone that's going to go and do bird photography in Nyungwe is to just have a degree of fitness before you go. You do have to walk, distance to kind of get to the birds. And the Gugu Trail is probably most famous from a birding perspective because of the accessibility to red-collared mountain babblers. And they are probably the star of the show from a birding perspective at Nyungwe. They are an Albertine Rift endemic. This is the only place that you can safely see this particular babbler. And so it was my main target of the trip, Chase, is to go up the Gugu Trail and try and find these babblers. And so I did make sure I was fit, so I enjoyed it and it was fun. But it is quite a steep climb. And I'll show you the photos I got in the next slide. But just to give you context, we walked for 3.5 hours without seeing a babbler. And really was like, keeping hope alive. And, when we found one flock, we found two flocks. And the best advice I can give to anyone looking to get decent photographs of these birds, it's all about time. And we spent, I'd spoken to Claver just about my love for red-collared mountain babblers, and so he was willing to let me to stay there as long as possible. And we spent 2 hours with the birds. And I'll talk a little bit about what I learned while waiting for them, and how that helped me actually get the shot that I had kind of visualized. I just wanted a beautiful portrait of these amazing birds. But just in terms of just some thank yous, I think the older I have got, the more I realize that bird photography is about the people you meet and the memories you make. And Gaston, who you can see, he's in the center picture. He's the man to the left, and Claver is the man in the middle, and then there's me on the right. So Gaston was my driver and tour guide, and just a remarkable man. He loves his coffee, and he knew about all the history of Rwanda. And he was just such a gentleman and such a calming influence on the trip. And we just had some really philosophical conversations along the way. And I couldn't have asked for anyone better in that position. And then Claver is just a phenomenal bird guide. I mean, Claver's been in Nyungwe for 22 years. Wow. He's done chimpanzee trekking. He knows the Latin names of, I'm not sure all 1,068, but a lot of the plant species. And, I just soaked that up. He would be able to tell me that waterberry trees are where red-collared babblers hang out. And, I just learned so much from him. And he is a humble man and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And I connected really deeply with these two men. And I think they made the trip everything that it was. And it just wouldn't have been anything without them. And yes, just a thank you to Keith and Desiree from Tropical Birding for just helping me on the, just put the trip together. And 3 years in the making, and they were just amazing throughout. And I think even when we had challenges, they were there to support me. So I just think it's just so important to honor those who made the trip possible. And then just the photo on the left, just sorry, Chase, before you ask questions, Claver is pointing at a spot along the Bururi Valley Road. And this is one of the things that I just dreamed of doing, is he's pointing at the spot where he saw Shelley's crimson wing, which is a bird that has not been photographed in the wild yet. So it's been misnetted. And so they've got photographs of it. But from what I understand, at least my knowledge, is there's no wild, bird photographs of it. And so, you can just imagine the adventure of walking down these roads where these mystical birds could appear with a man who's seen them, and him pointing them out to me was just an unbelievable experience and somewhat surreal.
So as a photographer, I'm sitting here having a little bit of anxiety, Richard. Why are you taking a picture of him pointing at a bird that's never been photographed?
No. He was just showing. Where he had seen it.
Got it. So it flew away.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow.
Because the chances of getting it, I actually probably gave up photographic time just to go on adventures with Claver to see if we could find some of these birds. I mean, we won on some occasions, but on some occasions, like with the Shelley's crimson wing, it was just the adventure without the bird, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. And just for context, we have a question on the side there. Silke asks, what type of lens are you using? Like, obviously, these tiny little birds are using like something with 800 millimeter reach, or is it less or more?
Great question. So for portraits, I was carrying a backpack with a camera and a lens, and I was carrying my R5 and a 600 millimeter prime f4 lens. Yeah. But in my backpack, I had 100 to 500, the Canon RF lens with another mirrorless camera. And that's largely just because of the photos I try to take. I love portraits, but I also like what are called habitat shots or birds in their environment. And if we get to it, I've got some examples that I can take you through. So I find carrying, prime lens and then a more versatile lens is important for me. So
yeah, that's great. And then no teleconverter on that 600.
No, I'm kind of a purist when it comes to the prime lenses, and yeah, I think shooting with an R5, 45 megapixels, and the quality that you get, I'm not sure the teleconverter. Well, just in my opinion, I go with just the quality that comes out of that lens, and I'm happy with that. So.
Great
Awesome.
question. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is, you're doing handheld, or are you doing? Sorry, he just has one more question. Doing handheld or monopod or anything like that?
I do. While I'm fit and strong, Chase, I do handheld. I realize that at some point I'm going to have to use a tripod, but especially with forest birding, I mean, I've got a few hints and tips that I'll tell after just this, the story behind these babblers. But yeah, you need to be ready. And I just find handheld just gets me there quicker. Although, I mean, it is quite tiring to kind of stand ready for the periods of time you have to. But yeah, I'm handheld at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you too. It's like when we're talking about, giving tips to people that want to get into photography, a lot of the times the muscle memory and the quickness that you need, like these are fleeting moments. So I can't imagine you seeing the bird and then setting up a tripod and hoping the bird sticks around. It's not the case typically.
Yeah.
So first of all, incredible shot. Like, this is unbelievable. Not only is the shot just like gorgeous, but it's an extremely rare bird. So how did this happen?
No, thanks, Chase. I mean, I think this is for the birders. I love the photograph, I think, for the memory, but I think if you Google red-collared mountain babblers, you might appreciate this image a bit more. It's very tricky conditions. I mean, this was shot at, I think it was ISO 6400 already. And I think I spent 2 hours with the birds. And I think what I got from that is you start to learn the bird's behavior. And so I'm not sure how many times photographers have spent with them before, but what I noticed is if you stood still and you didn't move after them, they didn't have really big feeding circles. And I say circles because they would almost come back on themselves. And I found that really interesting. So I thought, okay, well, if I just stay in the path and I stay dead still, they're likely to come back on themselves or at least be within the area that I'm in. Yep. And sort of, I guess, hour and 55, I kind of noticed some of the flock looked, and another thing I noticed about them is that, not often, but every now and then, one or two birds would drop down to eye level because they would see some lichen that they hadn't stuck their beak under, and they thought maybe there was something there. And I think those two just learnings, one gave me hope, and two, when I saw the birds sort of coming down and they looked like they're coming straight at me, I positioned myself close to a few trees that I thought they could possibly move down. Their behavior is like a foraging behavior. So they do move down branches and they move along branches. They don't stand still for long at all. And so I just trusted that one of them would jump on a tree that was, in my vicinity. And that's exactly what happened with the shot. It was very quick. I needed to be ready. Fortunately, I was, and I thought I duffed it, Chase, to be honest. And I looked at the back of my camera, and fortunately, there was, one or two sharp images, and this was obviously the one that I chose. And the image to the right of the two birds together happened a few minutes after that. They started actually calling from that perch. So it was just an incredible moment, and I think for me, the memory is it started with myself and Claver sort of praying together at the start of the walk and then celebrating on the way down. And for me, that was really amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's interesting. I mean, when you said before, if you just Googled this particular bird and you're looking up the images on Google, how much more you'd appreciate this. So when you're going there and having your expectation of just, as a birder, a lot of birders just want to see the bird, right? But then a birding photographer, it's kind of like your expectations a little bit more. So when you got this shot and you got this moment, was it all celebration? Did you guys look at it immediately after? And how did that help the long walk back?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Chase. I definitely looked at it to see that we got the shot, and I definitely showed Claire, and we absolutely celebrated. It was a moment. I mean, it was 5.5 hours, and I think Claver, was just like, sure, what is this guy doing? And he was such a star, and I think he actually, I think we just loved being with the birds. For me, I have a massive love for the subject, so observing them is is what I do without a camera, to be honest. And I guess the camera allows you to capture a moment and share it with others. And I think that's photography tells stories. And, I think getting images that can kind of make a bird come alive for other people kind of might get them excited about going to see them and protecting the natural habitat that they occur in. So, it's an awesome thing.
Amazing. Just a quick question from Tay on the side there. So obviously we saw what you guys were wearing as you were hiking. Did you guys have any sort of camo or netting or anything to like make you, like I guess disappear in the forest near these birds, or was it just standing still that kind of did it with the the same type of tones of the forest with your clothes?
Yeah, I didn't use that blue jacket I was wearing in the picture often, so I was normally looked a bit more like Claver. So I was normally just in khakis or green clothing.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it was just standing still. I think I've learned to just observe and be patient. And yeah, if you can start predicting what the bird's going to do, right, you can get yourself into a place where you can just be dead still, and all that you have to worry about is bringing your camera lens up closely. So no, I had nothing else other than just normal khakis and gaiters. So the one piece of advice is there's in Africa you have to worry about ticks, but in Nyungwe you have to worry about marching ants. So you wear gaiters just to stop them getting into your pants, which I heard is not a pleasant experience, and so I avoided it completely. But I did see some ants.
Carl just has a quick question here. What shutter speed for portraits versus flying birds? So in this case, like obviously your ISO is high, but you're in a forest, and getting the shot is the main thing. So you're going to have a faster shutter speed, I assume. But what's your typical rule when you are doing this?
Sure. Doing it for 13 years, I don't know what it's like for you, Chase, but you kind of get a sense, of like, so I don't necessarily focus too heavily on my shutter speed, but I guess for portraits, you don't want to go much below 300, I guess, and then you've got to be pretty dead still if you're going to shoot like that. And flight, so if I'm taking flight, I'm obviously more observant about my shutter speed and testing it.
Yep.
But in this forest, the trick is to try and get the shutter speed as low as possible so you can get your ISO down. Because with mirrorless shooting at 6,400 is good, right? They're amazing cameras, and their ability, to reduce the noise is amazing. But you kind of want to drop that to 3,200 if you can. So I try and push. If I have to go to 200, I'll try and get a few frames at 200. But with a bird like this, it's so difficult. You've got to kind of predict the ISO ahead of time and hope that you've got it right, because you don't have time to look at your shutter speed or know which tree it's going to land on. And the light is so variable in the forest, it's difficult.
Yeah, that's right.
But, we've got time to look at it, 300, 500 for portraits, fine, as long as you're fairly still. And then, flight is a whole different ball game. If it's a big bird, I guess 2,000. If it's a really small, fast-flying bird, you maybe want a bit harder, freeze the motion. If you're obviously going to not trying to do motion blur or something like that. Yep. So those are probably my rules of thumb.
It's by the sounds of it, I mean, you're obviously well versed in this, and as people, you have that typical starting point, and then it's all dependent on how still you are, how comfortable you are, how you can anticipate that behavior, like you said. So just to kind of summarize what you're saying, so there's like it's not necessarily a rule, it's more of like a guideline, and then you can fluctuate from there depending. I think a lot of people get confused because they want to do birds in flight and then they're trying to do a portrait. It's like, I guess, having that intention of being like, hey, I just need to get the shot of the portrait. The bird in flight may be a bonus in this case if you happen to nail that first portrait.
Yeah, and getting birds of flight, like when you're shooting in these kind of forest conditions, it's really tough. And I mean, one bit of advice here is I'd rather push your ISO up than get blurry photos. And I think that's the risk in places like in Nyungwe. I think people are afraid to push up their ISO. I think mirrorless really is changing the game. I mean, this kind of shot of this babler wouldn't have been possible with my DSLR with this little noise. So, you really should be looking to push up your ISO rather than, worrying about the noise too much, because, a blurry bird is a much worse outcome when you've got limited days. And, this kind of opportunity is not going to happen again. And I honestly thought I duffed it, and just got my ISO wrong. But was lucky, I guess. The shots on both sides were a bit blurry.
Yeah, no, exactly. And just, this is great, guys. Thank you for your questions. This is perfect. And I don't mean to derail you at all, Richard. So if you want to continue on, I don't know how many slides you have, but I'll just one more question here. In terms of the focus area that you're using, are you using single point, or are you using a 9-box, or are you using the complete AF tracking? What does that look like from your Canon R5?
So I use two settings. The front focus button. I'll use it's not point in the Canon R5. It's just like a small square, but it's the equivalent of point focus. And then I have back button focus, which I have on animal eye autofocus. So it picks up the eye of the bird. So what's helpful in the forest is I use my front button to get close to the bird, so that the animal eye can then pick up the eye. Yeah, and I think people have really struggled with the adjustment to mirrorless because they're used to using DSLR, and they're not really used to understanding how animal eye autofocus works. I've set up my camera to do exactly that. I get onto the bird, and if I'm on the bird and I don't need to use animal eye, I can obviously shoot immediately. But I'm often just using the front button focus with point focus to get in the proximity of the bird. And then I use back button focus to focus on the eye, because then it tracks the bird the whole time. And that's been, that's really worked incredibly well for me, Chase. And I'd never go back to DSLR. Once you've got the hang of it, it gets images that I couldn't see possible, especially in forest with a DSLR camera.
Fantastic. That's great. And then Leonard, you can go to the next one there if you like. And then he said, do you sit or stand while you wait? Good question. With those ants, you're probably standing, I assume, but
I mean, it just depends on the circumstance, right? So, I mean, I'm standing most of the time, but obviously if you've got, for example, like this Blackface Rufus Warbler, it's a understory skulker. So you might get low down on your haunches, or you might be sitting down. So it really depends what eye level looks like. And so I'll go through some of these slides, maybe just to hold the questions a bit. I'll just go through some of the slides, really just telling a few of the birds in the area. But this barred long-tailed cuckoo, I mean, it's not the best photo in the world, and it wouldn't really get into a photographic portfolio. But just the difficulty of this bird is just beyond. It's kind of mythical in southern Africa. They don't come out in the open. They don't like responding to call, and if they do, they normally fly past you. So it's a very tricky species, and I knew Nyungu was a good place to find it, and I was just blown away by actually getting a photograph. So the fact that you can see its eye, and it's actually clear was a win for me. And then this Blackface Rufus Warbler is one of the birds that we found on the Sumo waterfall trail. Just must be one of the most stunning warblers, and really a key target for me. So what might be interesting for people is I only had 16 birds as targets. And I think that really differentiates birders who take photographs versus bird photography. I find I can't have too many targets. I'm not trying to get record shots. I'm trying to get shots that, I feel are more about, not just about the bird, also about photography and something that will be unique and show the bird off in a different way. And I think if you're trying to, maximize species, you're just not going to get those kind of shots. And so I literally had 16 birds, sort of 2 birds per day. I find that I would have had less, but there were just too many exciting birds. And, I'd have to go back to kind of get the more arty, creative habitat shots that I like taking. But that just gives you a feel. I don't try and rush around trying to get photographs of all the birds. I just pick some birds that I really want to photograph, and then I hone in on those, and I'll spend 2 days, sort of on it. Sometimes I will spend 2-3 days just on one species. In this case, there was just so much to see, so it was sort of 2 a day, so half a day per species. And then when I find that particular species, then I'll spend that entire morning or half day with that bird, which is exactly what happened with those red-collared mountain babblers. And then just a bar-tailed trogon for me was one of the birds I really, really wanted to see. We get Narina trogons in South Africa, and this was the last trogon for me to see and photograph in Africa. And it was on the new Natal Trail. I probably didn't pronounce that right, but just what a wonderful moment. And then, yeah, I mean, it wasn't all about birding, and I realized Prince for Wildlife is about wildlife in general. And what I loved about Nyungwe is just the incredible primates. This is a Lahoist monkey, which is one of the more common primates, but just what a beautiful species. And we'd find them on the roadside. The one on the left is actually taken on the Gugu Trail.
Yep.
And what was amazing, Chase, is we'd be birding and I would hear chimpanzees in the background, And so that's obviously a big call card for Nyungwe, is the trekking after chimpanzees.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful experience. I obviously was just focused on birds, but it was just awesome to hear them in the background. I heard them on the Gugu Trail and I heard them on the Waterfall Trail. We saw great cheeked mangabees, silver monkeys. It was just awesome. And I mean, if you just look at the environment in which these animals and birds occur, I mean, it is just so stunning with the orchids and the like. And, it's just a magical environment. And maybe this is a good place just to talk about African parks. I had the privilege of speaking to Carly Flemmer, who I think his title is the Chief Marketing Officer of African Parks. And it was just wonderful to hear her and the team's passion for the parks that they look after. And we spoke about Nyungwe, and I think, for people listening in, just to understand why is it so important to look after this forest is, well, first of all, it's part of the lungs of the world,
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, it protects the water for Rwanda. So it's the main water source for Rwanda. And if you drive through Rwanda, you'll see how dependent it is on agriculture and what a big part agriculture plays in the lives of its people. And so if you just think what African parks and what the Rwandan government are doing together is they're protecting lives. It's not just about the animals and conservation. It's also about the people of Rwanda. And I love their holistic strategy that they are using in these parks. They realize that if we're going to protect nature, we also have to uplift communities. And we need a way to give communities hope, and we need to find a way to involve them in conservation. And so, I was just really impressed, one, experiencing Nyungwe, but also just understanding what goes on behind the scenes. And, they've got cooperatives that employ a lot of local people. They train a lot of guides. Some of those guides used to be poachers, are now part of the anti-poaching team. They've set up restaurants. That's obviously created employment. And they really encourage not only international tourism, but local tourism, so that people get to experience this incredible park and want to protect it for future generations. And obviously, they're really good at the conservation, the protection side. It's a big part is law enforcement. And what I realized is that their law enforcement and anti-poaching actually creates a degree of safety and order in an area, and that allows more economic activity. And so, I just can't thank them enough for the work that they're doing, and I think Prince for Wildlife for supporting them. It's a really great cause. And one of the things they are doing is looking to bring back African grey parrots, which will be really awesome. I think hearing the sound of parrots in that forest would be something very special. And I think they have plans to introduce other mammals as well. But just fantastic to get a little bit behind the scenes and see.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. Doing. Yeah, no, it's again, I can't have a better way to say it than you did there. It's that total involvement, right, of creating that balance within people and the planet that you can't have. It's like we're not going anywhere. neither is the nature, hopefully. So if you have that nature and you have people intertwined with that, I 100% agree with you that African Parks is doing an incredible work. More work than what we can see on the surface. So thank you for mentioning some of those things. That's great.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this is really why we're doing this talk, Chase, is to promote them. And when you just see the work they're doing in Zakuma National Park in Chad, and I know stories from Chad and just how difficult and tricky it can be to do that. Then you need to give credit where credit is due, and I think there's a lot more work to be done in the upliftment of communities, and how do we give people hope, and how do we transform communities. But it's awesome to see them starting to get that right, and starting to really apply their minds to that. And so, fantastic cause to support. And then more birds, because I love them. But this little guy's a red-throated Alethi, and incredible bird. They follow the marching ants. So if you find an ant swarm or ant column, you more than likely will find one of these alethes. Alethes are very shy birds. This is a more confiding of the alethe species, but still pretty shy. And there's probably, I love the shot just from a habitat perspective. It gives you a good sense of the environment. And then this little guy on the right here is a white-browed crombeck, undoubtedly the cutest crombeck in the world. So it was just awesome to see these birds in the forest. And then just a few others. You get white-headed woodhoopus, which I have dreamed of seeing for years. And then you get this beautiful little white-bellied robin chat. He looks very similar to the equatorial acolyte that you get in the same habitat. He was seen on the Bururi Valley Road. The woodhooper was seen on the Gugu Trail. And I'll be writing a newsletter on this chase just to give people like some good feel of where to find birds.
That's great.
But there's a book called Wild Rwanda by Behrens, Boy, and Barnes, which I really recommend. It gives great detail in what to expect on the different trails. And I'll put those details in my newsletter as well. But I'll just give a good sense of where these birds were found and what I thought were the best trails for certain species.
Amazing. And Richard, just where do people get your newsletter? Is it on your Instagram? Is it on your website?
Yeah, you can see it right on my Instagram page. There's a subscription link on that front page.
I think I got it here. That's the one there, right?
Sorry, I can't see anything.
Oh, you can't see the chat. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I put it in the chat, guys. So if you guys want that newsletter to get some information about location and access of these birds, obviously that's the link there. So I got you covered. Don't worry, Richard.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. Yes, this is a Tulberg's woodpecker. Again, just Google him. Difficult bird to get low down at eye level. Tricky species, and we just one of my favorite moments is just finding this one on the Bururi Valley Road, and we got a few moments with him, and it just shows the magic of the forest. I chose to do some backlighting on the one on the left, and it just shows the romance of the forest and the incredible light, and then to see the bird in all its glory on the right hand side. And then for me, just one of the things about Nyungwe that was just so awesome is there really was hope, because you really didn't know what you're going to see around every bend. And this dusky crimson wing we wandered into the parking area at the Awinka reception, and I was just walking along the car park and suddenly saw one of my main targets, staring me down. And so, you just don't know what you're going to see. And I think that was possibly why I just chose to go on adventures with Claver, not worry too much about getting the more arty or creative shots, but just spending time, looking for these incredible birds. And so this was just an amazing moment to see one right in the car park.
Unreal.
And wow. Then, this is probably just a nice story. I think we were talking earlier just about, birding's a lot about relationships for me and the memories that get left behind. And this little bird is called a yellow-bellied wattle-eye. And he was one of the birds that really, when I was looking through a bird book, and I got a bird book, it was called Birds of Africa South of the Sahara by Ian Sinclair and Peter Ryan. And I did this bird, when I saw it for the first time, I stopped in my tracks, and sure enough, it was from the Albertine Rift mountains and other areas in Africa, but there. And so we were walking down the Bururi Valley Road, and Claver heard him to the left, and then we heard him to the right, and we were just waiting quietly, and suddenly there was this movement to the right of us, and he literally landed 2.5 meters away from us. Wow. And both of us just stopped, dead still. I kind of think I got something out my mouth to tell Claver that it was literally staring me down. And then I didn't really know what to do, because they're known to be so shy and sort of, I guess, fleeting in terms of their appearance. And I was like, how am I going to get my camera up now and take a photograph of this little bird? And so I just slowly kind of picked my camera up and hoped for the best. And he just stuck around. And the amazing thing is I took a photo at 12,800 ISO, because these guys are under the canopy and it's dark. Yep. And he allowed me to get my ISO down to 6,400 and take even more shots. So I was just
nice guy.
and then so I finished the shots and he flew off, and I didn't know what else to do but just give Claver a big manly hug. And I think we'll both remember, just remember this moment for many years to come. And I spoke to Claver on WhatsApp today and Gaston yesterday. So it's wonderful to have these memories and shared moments with those two magic individuals, and lovely to still be in touch and share our lives.
Oh, that's really nice. Really nice.
And so, I think in summary, before we get to my contribution to Prince for Wildlife is, I would just encourage anyone with the means and the time to try and get to Nyungwe themselves. It's very hard to put in words or even photographs. It is just a magical place, and I'd really encourage everyone listening in to go there. And as I say, if they want more details, they're welcome to just subscribe to my newsletter.
Fantastic. Perfect. So then, I don't know if you happen to have it, but we're going to give a little preview of what you've contributed for this year's Prince for Wildlife campaign, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry if I don't mess it up. Let me just get there. So this is the image. It's called The Doting Couple. And it's of two purple-crested tarakus. This is probably it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime moments. I've seen purple-crested tarakus on thousands of occasions, but they definitely haven't done this. And I was photographing emerald cuckoos in the canopy, and these guys burst out of thick cover, and they just started, I don't know if canoodling is the right word, but just doting on each other. And I had my car behind me, and I guess it was some form of camouflage, or they just didn't care. But they just interacted for a few minutes right in front of me. And so, just a very special moment. And I hope it will be something that people want to hang on their walls. So, I hope it does well for Prince for Wildlife and for the campaign.
It's an absolutely incredible shot. I mean, just from an aesthetic perspective, from the story perspective, it has everything. So thank you for sharing that. That's, it's definitely going to be something that I think will fly off the shelves to raise money for African parks. And especially, you as a person, everybody here, I hope you share this webinar. I hope you share the recording with other people who are interested in birding. This is a man who's really committed to the parks, to the birding, to telling the stories. And thank you again for donating this shot. This is, again, I haven't seen this before. This is the first time I'm looking at it, and it's incredible. It honestly looks a little bit fake. It looks like too perfect. So good on you for nailing the shot.
Crazy moment. Absolutely crazy moment. And thanks for those kind words, Chase. And I hope it does well for the campaign. I know then you wanted to just kind of chat about, I think we got a little bit more time. Are there questions first, or should I get just into the body of work that I'm currently working on? How would you like to do it?
Let me, you're done sharing your screen. Is that correct?
I've got a few more images that I can show,
okay,
but
let us know kind of before we get into the questions. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in there now. Let those questions build up a little bit. If it's specifically about the park, about African parks, or anything that Richard's up to. So basically, Richard, what's next for you? What's in the pipeline in terms of photography projects or wildlife stuff that you have going on?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chase. So just first of all, because William Steele and Andres will never forgive me, but they have launched. They're the founders of South African Photographer of the Year, and I'm really excited to be a judge on the first South African Photographer of the Year. So anyone who has taken photographs in my beautiful country of South Africa, please think of entering this competition. It really has got a wonderful heart behind it, and proud to be part of it. So that's one of the projects that we'll be doing. Entries are open now till December. I have no commercial involvement. I love my country, and I think when we get photographers to share about the beauty of a place, it just creates awareness, excitement, and we celebrate just everything awesome about South Africa and its wildlife and its birds and the like. And then just from a personal perspective, I've got an amazing trip coming up to Kenya, to Al Karama with my family. I'll be doing some photography and putting together a portfolio of the birds that I see in the area. So I'm really excited to do that. It's a very special place for us as a family. It's my wife's dad's old farm. And so it's going to be amazing to go back and really hopefully bring some of their bird life onto the screen. And then just, from a body of work perspective, I'm busy with what I'm calling iconic African birdscapes. This is the first shot in the series. It's really about giving equal weight to the incredible landscapes we have in Africa, but also to the bird. So equal weighting between the bird and the landscape. And I find it just such an exciting genre because there's definitely a lot of providence that needs to happen for all these things to come together. And I think that's what I probably love about it the most. And then, I guess part of this body of work is also looking at epic landscapes with birds in them. This would be more your birds of environment type photos, your traditional birds of environment. And then, looking at habitat shots, which is really birds in typical habitats. So you've got a marsh owl in farmland in Devon, in southeast Gauteng, and you've got a magpie shrike in Mopani. And so those are kind of the three, I guess, areas that I'm working on. I'm excited to share Africa with everyone and hopefully use that to drive awareness and raise money for conservation. And so that I think is going to probably be a lifetime project, Chase, but I'm really excited about sort of putting it together now, and I'm excited about the trips ahead.
Wow. Those animalscape shots and those habitat shots are some of my favorite. It's nice to see the habitats. Sometimes we think that, or maybe we make assumptions on where these birds live and where they're thriving. And a lot of times we forget about those, like what it looks like, the areas that we need to protect, right? We think it's maybe looking like a forest, when in reality it's marshland that is really important to those particular species. And I think that's a fantastic project. And if you're the person to do it, if there's gonna be one person to do it, I think it's yourself. So again, those shots are incredible. Probably some of my favorite shown today too. So thank you for sharing that upcoming project and some of your work. So again, if you can definitely, in that subscription letter that you're going to put out, make sure that you put that South African Photographer of the Year contest in the links. I'm sure people will be looking for that. And obviously if you guys are interested in what Richard's doing, be sure to follow him on Instagram and get his photo once Prince for Wildlife starts. So if there's any other questions that you guys may have, just put them in the chat. We'll give you guys a minute to populate that. Otherwise, we'll finish this one out, and we'll see Richard on the Prince for Wildlife shot. Awesome. Thank you for the kind words, Silke. Okay. Awesome. Okay, looks like we're just getting people signing off. So thank you guys again for attending the Prince for Wildlife Photographer Spotlight. Today we spoke with Richard Flack, South African photographer, bird lover, birder extraordinaire, with his team and his crew, and a huge advocate for Prince for Wildlife. So again, we appreciate all your perspectives on what this Prince for Wildlife aims to do is to help fund these amazing projects in terms of uniting communities, bringing value to conservation for the communities, for the wildlife, and everybody that's involved. So thanks again for that perspective. That's really great, and I'm sure that everybody else has a whole next level of appreciation for African parks. So thank you, sir, and we'll chat to you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chase. All the best. Thanks so much.
You bet. We'll chat soon. Okay.